Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sally Lewis. I'm the National Director for Value-Based Healthcare in Wales. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. And we're moving the discussion now onto how we can accelerate data-enabled research, particularly in the context of personalised medicine in active and healthy ageing, of course. So we're fortunate to have with us today Dennis Horgan, who is the Executive Director of the European Alliance of Personalised Medicine, Karina Dantas, the Director of Innovation at Cáritas Coimbra in Portugal, and finally Tony Dejeu, Director for the Agency for Health Quality and Assessment in Barcelona.
Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I have a disclaimer to present because Henrique Martins, who actually spoke before in the panel before, is Portuguese as I am, but we are just meeting now because we didn't met and we didn't organize the presentations together, I have to assure, but you understand why I'm saying this afterwards. Because this is obviously a very technical issue and we are a caregiver organization, my purpose is not to provide any technical information on it. And I would like to start with a story about something else that I think that can frame a little bit the rest of the presentation. Well, some years ago, almost 10 years ago, when cable TV came to Portugal and to rural areas, we had a lot of older persons, usually frail persons with low literacy, being approached by many companies who wanted to sell them big packages of cable TV. They offered like 120 or 200 channels, TV channels, and Wi-Fi and internet connections and a phone line, and they just had to pay around 50 euros for a contract of 2 years. And a lot of people, families with low incomes, with low pensions, thought this was a very good idea. And they made these contracts and allowed to do all this and to pay for all of this. As the truth was that from the 120 TV channels, they could only watch 2 or 3 because they couldn't read the subtitles or understand the other languages, and there were only 2 or 3 in Portuguese. And they didn't use Wi-Fi because they didn't have a computer or a smartphone. And they could have had a package of like 10 euros a month to what they needed. But the truth is that they bought the big one. And I believe that the main reason why they did this wasn't because they were deceived. They understood that they were buying this. What they didn't understood was exactly what they were buying. And that, if I can, yeah. And that for me would lead to, I hope, yes, the first question here, which is, when we debate big data and personalized medicine, we are talking a lot about collecting data, and GDPR, as the first panel discussed, made a very strong framework to guarantee that citizens, that end users, were very protected and only allowed to collect data in very specific ways. We speak about explicit consent and a very thorough one on the data collection. But the truth is that, in my opinion, as caregiver, and seeing especially more frail groups like older persons, the truth is that a lot of persons will consent to something that I don't think they understand fully. On one hand, maybe they don't even understand the way the data will be collected, what will be collected, for what it will be collected, and it is very difficult for us to be discussing here explicit consent when probably there's a lot more to do before this. Because the truth is, and this is how I connect to Henrique Martins, the big issue is that in reality there is not enough digital literacy or health literacy, at least among the older adults of the population. On one side, maybe a lot of us in this room don't fully understand big data and data collection. So maybe there isn't just a problem in the older population. The truth is that there are very complex issues connected there, and we still have very simple issues to solve in reality. I believe the first big issue here is that we have a big gap between what we are discussing here today, which is in a high policy level, and what happens in reality, and they are probably 10 years distance. And because of it, I expect that here today we can also understand that we need to prepare these next 10 years. And that is by providing digital literacy and health literacy to the population, so that in 10 years' time, when everything is well built in policy terms, it can be applied because people already understand it. They don't just understand digital parts, but also understand health issues, how to manage their own health, and what can be brought by personalized medicine. So the second big idea was that the personalized medicine, I believe, can be a revolution in healthcare. Maybe not a very fast one, but it's a path we are doing. The truth is that it is very different from what we have right now, because right now, in most countries and in most health systems, what we have are general protocols and guidelines, and we still don't have all the prevention mechanisms that we could have. So every time we do something very powerful, and collecting data in the sense that we are discussing here today, which is in a very extensive way, will be a very powerful thing. And as all the powerful things, we need to understand that it can always have a lot of dangers implied. And we all have discussed them some way or the other. It can be misused by for commercial purposes, or it can lead to inequalities if you go to the health private sector or public sector, if you have more money to spend or less money to spend. And despite all this, it is very important to understand that for all of us, private organizations, public companies, other stakeholders, national authorities, if we don't understand that ethics on collecting data is a core value, then we won't succeed on this. I think there will be enough benefit, social, financial benefit, also economic benefit on all of this if we do it the right way. And I hope that ethics is not considered as an option or something we need to disclaim on the form, on the informed consent form, but that it is something that will guide us through this. And hopefully we can take it as a mission towards common good.
Thank you, Karina. You raised some very interesting and important points, I think, around the importance of mutual understanding being required for explicit consent, and I agree. I think there's a long way to go, and we can hopefully draw some more of that out in the discussion later. But first I'd like to hand over to Tony.